apparently, in 2014, some protesters started to use it. The gesture caught fire among young people. Since then, raising three fingers like this is a crime in Thailand. And now, many of you may be wondering how it is possible that the Thai people have not risen up against their king before.
I'm wondering why haven't more people told us this? Like, why is this not like international news? The Katniss evergreen has become a symbol of protest, anti-authoritarianism in Thailand, and only now I've been hearing about this. Like, why is this not common knowledge everywhere? Again, I would have been backing Thailand protesters a lot earlier if I knew about this.
The monarchy in Thailand has existed for centuries, after all. Well, the truth is that, until a few years ago, the King of Thailand was a really popular figure. To give you an idea, more than 12 million people went to King Bhumibol's funeral to say goodbye to him. And remember that Thailand has 64 million inhabitants.
This was in 2016. Things have changed since then.
That means that on October the 25th, 2017, 1 out of every 6 Thai people dropped what they were doing to go to the Grand Palace in Bangkok to say goodbye to their god king. Even in cinemas, before seeing a movie, Thai people have to stand up and listen to the Royal Thai anthem. Now, I know what you're going to say. If the
I get these authoritarian... this is just I want to go take a shower. Like, I don't know, it grosses me out. Like, oh, before the movies, guys, I don't know if you guys have, most of you lived in free countries most of your life, right? You haven't lived under authoritarian regimes like I have. But whenever I see this, I just get like, it just brings so much gross memories of like loyalty to the nation and the great leader, and I just want to puke. I want to puke so badly. Oh my god, it's just so gross. Like standing for the national anthem and our leader is gonna save us, and oh my god, it's so gross. It's just so disgusting. I get such like this rat. I just want to be like, ew. I just want to pour Purell over my monitor right now. I don't know why I have this allergic reaction to fascism. It's just like all this tendency. It's not just like, yeah, fascism bad, authoritarian bad. It's just that every time I see even just like the habits and just like the smell of it, it's just like, oh my, it's just like the worst. It's just the worst taste in my mouth. Even the symbolism, even they do it all. They all sound and look and act the same way as well. And whenever you see it, you're like, yeah, I know what this is. Ew, I know. I've seen this before. I lived under this before, and it's just like, ew, gross. And all this like the face. You know what? It's not the grossest part. It's not the. I know the worst. These are the worst, the bad parts. Okay, the parts that everybody could know, like, yeah, that's bad. It's like the prison sentences and the torture and the lack of freedom and all that. Yeah, but and all of that is bad, and we should condemn. But you know what is like the part that is just the most cringe, the cringiest part is the fake love. It's just this whole pretend that let's all this think like, oh, it's like we're so in love with the king or the great leader, or like, oh, this dust is like gold, like every single part of this country. I just want to stick my dick in the earth and make love to this country. I just love it. Oh my god, the flag gives me an erection. The flag gives me an erection. Like all that stuff. Like, ew. Like, get the hell out of here with this. Oh god, I don't know. I hate it. I hate it so much. You know what? I hate it so much that when I'm having sex and I need to last a bit longer, I just think about authoritarian regimes, and that just gives me like at least another 20 minutes. It gives me at least another 20 minutes, okay?
Monarchy is so popular in the country? Why do they have so many coups? Well, let's take a look at that right now.
Marco is saying, exactly, pretending that we live in heaven and acting like morons. I hated it so much. Yes, me too. Pro sex tips, yes. Oh, guys, I love this part of I love the floating markets. I love the floating markets in Thailand. I hate, okay, they used to be so much better. Now they're just like, every single one of them are like each other, okay? It used to be so much better, like the non-touristy floating markets. You get on a boat and there people are cooking and there's food and there's spices and there's like, you feel like you went back in time. But now there's the touristy ones, it's just like souvenirs. And like, it's just too touristy, okay? You just go from one of them and like, okay, these are some souvenirs I could buy for people that I don't care about. And then the next one, souvenirs again, exactly the same items as the previous one. And the next one, same souvenirs. You all look like each other. Where are the spices? Where are the food? Where's the fruits? I mean, they should get rid of the souvenir shops and just make them all with the food and the smell and the cooking and the spices and the fish. That should be the markets. What is like, yeah, see, look at this one. This is like, no, actually, this is fine. This one is like souvenirs, okay? Now, half of them are just souvenirs now. Like, I'm pretty sure if I wanted to buy a souvenir, I would have bought it in the first 20 that I saw. I don't understand why you think now the 22nd souvenir shop, all of a sudden, like, oh, yeah, I would like to buy an elephant with a Thailand written on it. I wasn't convinced the first 20 times I saw it, but now I'm gonna do it. Okay, just bring back the foods, bring back the cooking. Like, okay, so this is why when you want to go to a floating market in Thailand, you pick the less touristy ones. Okay, I'm just giving you some pro tips.
A dictatorship every 4 years.
One of the main advantages of democracy is that it allows for the change of power without bloodshed. Instead of spending money on weapons for a civil war, candidates spend it on electoral materials. Well, in the absence of democracy, the opposite is true. In Thailand, candidates spend as much on weapons as they do elsewhere on advertising. Thailand has suffered 19 coups since 1932. Of these 19, 12 were successful and another 7 were not. All these coups d'etats follow a similar pattern. A faction of the army organizes the coup d'etat, and it is the king who decides whether he wants to support it or not. The loser has to go into exile, and the winner becomes the country's dictator for a few years. Usually about 4. I mean, come on, they're basically like elections, but only one person has the vote, and that person is the king. Some of these coups have been really violent. For example, in 1973, several students demonstrated against the military government of the time. 77 students were massacred and 850 were seriously injured in the protests.
Oh, look at him. Look, this is a face of regret. This is the person that was hoping something for his country, wanting to make things better. And now he's wondering if it was all worth it. This is a face filled with confusion, fear, and regret from somebody that sacrificed everything to just make lives better for some other people. That's just all of those feelings in one picture.
Night, the king announced that the military government had to resign. Years later, the dictator Thanom Kittikachorn was exiled. However, other coups were much more peaceful. For example, the 1957 coup lasted just a few hours. In this case, General Sarit Thanarat sent his loyal troops to take over the most important military facilities. He was supported by a large group of civilians who were protesting in the streets. Hours later, this man became Thailand's new prime minister. The former leader went into exile in Europe and returned to the country 6 years later to become prime minister again. So it seems that in Thailand, military dictatorships come and go, but one thing remains, and that thing is the monarchy.
The god.
And you may be wondering, but how can the people there support this system? Well, one fairly convincing answer is the economy. With or without a lack of freedom, Thailand is one of the richest countries in the region.
You know where this is going. You know where this is going. The reason why the protest, because guys, as long as people's lifestyles keep improving, people are like, yeah, I could do without some freedom. Okay? But if you keep taking people's freedom away, you better improve their lifestyle constantly. Because as soon as there's a stop in that progress, people are gonna be like, you know, that freedom that we weren't asking before, we want a tiny bit of that. Okay, so you have to, if you can't keep improving their lives, then they're gonna start asking for other things. Okay, people around the world are willing to be like, yeah, you know, we're not the freest country in the world, but hey, lives are better. Our life is better than 5 years ago. Okay, so but that's a very risky bargain for the government, for authoritarian governments, because you better keep that up forever. The smallest hiccup in this progress is going to make people like, excuse me, may I speak to the manager of freedom, because we lack freedom. Anybody who's the person that is handing out freedom, we would like some rights, please. We were promised rights. And then they're going to be like, yeah.
As a comparison.
So again, so what's happening? So we're probably getting this whole thing is probably going to be blamed on COVID, right? Oh, wait. Forming a military dictatorship in a computer game is also illegal in Thailand. So what? So if you're playing a strategic game, you should make sure you don't make a military dictatorship in the computer game. That's amazing. That's amazing, Thailand.